Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 New Jersey International Film Festival Shorts Q&A, actually experimental short Q&A. Today we have two wonderful filmmakers. We're going to chat with them for the next 25 minutes. And I wanted to let you know that the 2023 NJIFF will be taking place on 2 weekends between June 2nd and June 11th. There'll be programs that'll be online and in person, and films will be available on their show date for 24 hours online, and there'll be in-person screenings either at 5 or 7 p.m. Today, we have two wonderful filmmakers from various parts of the world. We have Alessia Cecchet. All right, I got it right. Her film Balena, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and it's very similar to the French, so baleine, I know Balena is whale. And then we have Theodore Drusba. His film is called Gutter, and we're going to be talking about their films for the next 25 minutes, as I said, and stick around. I'll show you how to buy tickets to these films, but I want to say welcome to both of you. Hello.
Hello.
Thank you. Hi, thank
And
you.
I've been fans of Alessia's work. We've shown, I think, at least one film.
I think all
Two.
of them.
All of them. That's great. So I see so many films every year, but I always remember Alessia's work, and very experimental. And her film Balena is very moving film that focuses on a dead whale on a beach. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And Gutter is a film that takes place at a bowling alley during a very nasty storm, where we see three people kind of come together. But that's my take on the films. Tell me about your film, Alessia, and then Theodore, you'll get to do the same. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So my film started being made in 2018. When I encountered this body on a beach. I was living in Santa Cruz at the time. I was doing a PhD at the University of Santa Cruz, which I finished last June. And I was walking on the beach, and I suddenly saw this gray mass, this body. So I was really compelled by it. And I started to look at it, but also I started to look at the people looking at the body. And then I kept thinking about it. And so that evening I went back home, and I was really struck by it. It was a really sad experience. And I had a lot of conflicted feelings at the same time, because I could see this body and I could see so up close. And the reason I could see so up close is because it was dead. And most likely not for natural reasons, because whales usually, when they die for natural causes, they just sink into the ocean and create a new environment. So I've seen a body on the beach that was stranded like that, and it was like a juvenile humpback whale. Really struck me. So I went home and I made a embroidery of the whale that you can actually see in the film. And then up to that point, I had not shot anything, and I decided to go back the 1 or 2 days after, and I shot some footage of mostly the whale, but also the people kind of like interacting and watching the whale. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point. I was just really trying to respect this body. At the same time I was shooting it, I was trying to be respectful and really think about the animal that was in front of me, not just like as a spectacle. And then as I continued and I started to write my dissertation, I started to look into dead whales as a mode of representation, as media. And specifically, there's this practice that started at the end of the 19th century of parading embalmed dead whales on railroad cars, which was a very strange thing. And I wrote about it. I wrote a chapter. And so at the same time, started to think about this film more. And so that's when I shot things with actors, and I made a whale. I like to make objects. That's core of my practice, is to make objects that I can activate through film and animation. And so I made this whale made of fabric that is not life size, but it's pretty big. And I had my actress interact with it. And yeah, so the film eventually came together 4 years after I started. So it was a long journey, and a very felt journey too. Yeah,
it's a wonderful film. It's very moving. I'll read you guys what the judges thought of your film in a few minutes. But Theodore, tell us a little bit about your film.
So my movie, I started working on it maybe 4 years, even more, yeah, 4 years ago, about
Wow.
when I started writing I was studying abroad in Prague, and at that time I realized that to be with so many people all the time would bring some kind of loneliness on your own as well, some promiscuity. And then I traveled to Italy by myself, and that loneliness finally felt like great, like I embraced it. So at this point, I realized that there are various ways to interact with loneliness, and it'll reflect how loneliness treats you as well. So from there emerged an idea where I was thinking, where would be the pinnacle of loneliness? And I think to go alone in a bowling alley would be a great representation of loneliness because nobody really goes alone.
Mm.
So I have three characters that do happen to go in this stranded bowling alley, very vintage, with like dust everywhere, as if it's abandoned. And from there, they will come together and find solace in their loneliness, and also be confronted with the way they react towards their own loneliness. So, like one of the characters is more she the young Medea who works at the counter. She's more in this like if she cannot be happy, other people cannot be happy, and that will reflect on her own loneliness afterwards. The same way that the old guy, the old widow, the old widower, I'm sorry, is more receptive of loneliness and will see what happens around him,
Mm.
whereas the businessman who's more aggressive towards himself will crash in the end. So from there, that's it. Yeah,
Well, your
it's
film
looking.
was just amazing. I mean, you create this world, the lighting, the cinematography, there's little animation flourishes, the music, everything comes together beautifully. And I thought to myself, this reminded me of the David Lynch film, although your film is so much more interesting in some ways because there's so many levels to it, because the woman who works at the bowling alley, she's got a bowling ball in her belly.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
then I thought, well, that's pretty cool. And the businessman, he wants to take off. And it's like
mhm,
launching the ball down the alley. And then I think everything comes together perfectly. And in many ways, it's a perfect film.
mhm.
I think you should be commended. Tell me a little bit about the actors and how did you decide these 3 or 4 people would be in your film?
Yeah, I'll start also the fact that you mentioned Lynch. For some reason, I thought I had watched the other two movies, Alessia's and as well as
Mm,
Alfie,
mm.
and I had the same feeling about us three movies. Like somehow I felt there was a bit of a Lynchian. Even yours with the whale stranded
Yeah,
reminded me of Inland Empire in some sense,
yeah.
without like the fast camera work and so on. But anyway, so that it's funny you say that. Yeah, I would agree. The actors, so I was super lucky because I started writing it in 2016. I said 4 years ago, but with COVID, I lose track of time. It seems like
Mm,
everything is 4 years ago. I started writing it in 2016, but I shot it during the pandemic. So I was
mm,
super lucky in some sense that nothing was canceled. Here in Quebec,
mm.
regulations become a lot harder for filming. But in some sense, I was lucky because actors were free. My friends were free to work on the movie as well as the
Mm.
text and so on. So we have 4 actors in my movie. The widower is I found on an agency. Like we have a union for actors, so I found him there.
That's
The
Daniel. Daniel.
Daniel de Bilgrave. He's
Yeah,
from Belgium.
yeah.
Yeah, so super super character. This guy is super generous, and he used to call me every so often after production to just see how things were, and he was super excited to show the movie to his wife and so on. So that was fun. And then the two young adult actresses were friends of mine.
Mm,
But they are professional actresses because when you work in the circle, you end up meeting a lot of people that are professional that end up being your friends as well.
cool.
And lastly, the businessman is a quite well-known Quebec actor here. He's made big movies and big series, and he's a really good friend of a producer of mine, and just pulled me this favor. And it's in cinema, it's often the case that it's bits of luck that are aligned, and you can achieve something that's amazing.
So that was Jean-Louis Verreau.
Jean-Nicolas.
Okay, I got it wrong. And then you have Molly Fillon. She plays
Médée. She plays Médée.
right. And then the other actress, I wrote it down. Where?
Caroline
Caroline, that's right. That's right. She was great too. And
Yeah.
Laura Torres did a wonderful job as a DP.
Oh yeah.
She was excellent.
She's amazing. Yeah.
Tell us about the actors that you had in your film. And you both of your films have animation flourishes as well. And I think they're both different. I think, as you mentioned about the 19th century depiction of whales and whale carcasses, is really, that scene is really great, where they're in the operating or whatever it is. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Elephant Man. There's the Lynch connection too. And then how did you do that? How were you able to bring collage into your film?
Yeah, so I started to make, like, my first attempts at making film were actually animations. And since I started that, and this was 10 years ago, I always had to incorporate some kind of animation in my films. Even if I don't want to, I still end up doing it. And so for that scene, I shot that in a green screen room, and the actors were all friends of mine. Yeah, it was green screen. Because at the time I didn't even know what I wanted to do yet. I just knew I wanted to do a scene where they were dissecting and engaging with this whale in a more scientific or pseudoscientific setting. And I borrowed a lot of strange equipment from the physics lab at the university. They borrowed to me. They lent it to me, and so I shot this stuff in the green screen, which was much closer. Actually, it was still a wide shot, but it was much closer. And then I tried with different backgrounds, and I was never sure. And that's one of the last things that I actually set on. And then I just thought, I think at the time, because I was writing my dissertation and I was doing a lot of research visually, so I decided what. I came to realize what kind of look I was looking for, and I ended up being an anatomical theater. So that's kind of like my sources. So I started to source images from different anatomical theaters, different points in time, and just like cut a lot of things and put them together and composite it all together, and ended up really liking it. But it became much smaller. Like the group of people was like much smaller, and like all this gigantic room. And then the other animations, I just really love to work with wool. So I did some with wool. I did the one that you see in the background with the melting whale. I just experimented a lot. It was during a spring break. So I did all the animations during the spring break when I was like, I just want to spend time in the studio away from writing. And
It's always stressful when you're defending your thesis, but we should be calling you doctor now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Why don't you guys ask questions to each other about your work? That would be nice.
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Where was that beach located, and how come you managed to get some shots that had like nobody for like long, especially the one on the side where you see there's nobody? I just felt like it's a beautiful beach. Usually it's packed with people. I saw these shots and I was like, oh my God, like it seems unreal,
Yeah, it's Santa Cruz, California, in this, which is like a beach town south of San Francisco, like 2 hours. And it's usually busy in the summer, but there's some beaches that are more south that you have to walk more to get to them. So that's where the whale was, and because it's like you can really walk for miles and miles and miles on these beaches. They're like, people tend to like kind of disperse. So they're not the crowd beaches that most people are familiar with. These are more like also more there's less houses. It's more like, also there's a lot of wind. It's oftentimes cold. So it's not like you don't go for a beach day. You like go for a walk and then you go home because it tends to be cold. How did you find your location?
Again, I was super lucky, I think, with the pandemic, even though it's not, it hasn't been all glitters. The bowling alley was closing because of lack of people. So I asked if I could do my film in there. They said yes, and they even said because the bowling where I shot was vintage, but not vintage enough to my taste. So I asked if I could paint it because it was just gray. So I wanted to have like this coral salmon look. So I painted the whole the whole bowling. I installed these curtains everywhere, and also the big round like the what's it called, uh, the lighting, there's like some lightings that they come down from the ceiling.
Yeah.
None of these were existent, so I installed all of these, and they basically said yes to everything I wanted to do because they were closing their doors, and from there I did all of this. Yeah.
Oh wow!
was
So
fun.
now it's closed. It's not open.
Now it's closed. It's the last thing that happened. The
Wow.
last bowling balls that went on them. Yeah.
That
Wow.
that fits the theme of the film too, in some way,
Yeah.
without giving
Yeah.
anything away.
Yeah.
I think
Wow.
the jury gives me all these films, right? We had 711 entries, which is a lot for us. Usually it's 400, 500. We got a lot of entries for this festival, and usually we show 20 or 25, but we showing 35, which is a lot for us too. But it means that we're pretty competitive because only 5% of the films that we
Make it.
showing only 5% of the films that we received. So that means that, there are 30 jurors, and those jurors are broken down into groups. And I serve on some of the groups, and I served on the one for Gutter and Balena. So I knew right away that your films would be in the program because the judges are film cinema students, previous winners, members of the press, as well as academics like me. So it's a nice mix and different demographics, and it's imprecise, but it's usually pretty spot on in terms of the films that we selected. And I wanted to read some of the comments that I had for Alessia's film. This judge wrote, quietly disturbing, subtle in showing the effects of climate change on animals, moving film, visually stunning. Let's see, I can't even read my own writing here. Scene in the parking lot seemed dreamlike. So,
That's true.
when I put this program together, I'm trying to find connections between your two films, which is pretty easy because they both have a very dreamlike quality. And then for Theodore's film, I thought this is an amazing film, created a world, and the lighting is just amazing. Acting was spot on. My favorite film that I saw, this judge wrote also. So the judges scores your film usually from 0 to 10, and they fill out a form for each one. So we have information about all the films that every film is watched. A lot of festivals, they don't watch everything, which I think is real crime because as a filmmaker, you spend all this time and money submitting the film to festivals. You want them to be taken seriously. So as a filmmaker's film festival, I really want to make sure that each film is treated with respect and is watched. And so the fact that your films were selected, you should be very proud that they scored so high and that they're being part of our festival. Okay, I want to share screen since we're running out of time, but let me do this first to make sure I have everything that I need set up. And here we go. That's good. So I will share screen. You think you're a pro. I've done hundreds of these. And I had to teach this way. I'm sure, Alessia, you've had to deal with this as well. And just when you think you got everything, something goes wrong. And that happens very rarely, but it does happen. Not today, though, because I do have my act together. And this is our normal website, which is njfilmfest.com. There's a lot of New Jersey film festivals that are popping up. New Jersey Short Film Festival, New Jersey Independent Film Festival. We're the longest running jury film festival in the state. The two previous ones are the Newark Black Film Festival, which caters just to African-American films, and then the Black Mariah Film Festival, which is now called the Thomas Edison Film Festival. They are like 2 months older than us, but they're also very specific on what they show. We show anything, feature, documentary, animation, experimental, short, student films. But here we are. This is the location of where we show movies, Voorhees Hall. If you can see the picture in the background, that's where we screen movies, and that's where the in-person screenings will be. And to get information about our current festival, normally you can just do that, but you can hit current events. It'll do it that way for you. And this is general information, but because we're now streaming films, we have an eventive website, which is where all the information is. So you really need to click on buy tickets, and that'll bounce you to our other website that has 4 red buttons that you'll need to press and explore our site. But if you want to buy tickets, you click on where it says ticket screenings, and this will pop up. And the experimental program is here. On June 2nd is where we'll do 1 batch of movies. On the shorts program number 2, we'll click on that one. Since both of your films are playing on shorts program 2, that will be taking place on June 4th, which is a Sunday, and it'll be at 5 o'clock for the in-person screening and for 24 hours on that day. And let's say you don't get to watch the movies until 10 o'clock at night, you still have 24 hours to finish watching all of them. So the clock only starts once you start watching, but you must start watching on June 4th in order for that to work. So this is a very nice image from Gutter, and it gives you basic information about Theodore and his cast. And then we'll be showing a film called Circle, which is a dance film from Germany. And then another dance film about disabilities by a New Jersey filmmaker. Light Leak is by a Brooklyn filmmaker, which is experimental. And this is an image from Balena. And you can buy tickets by clicking pre-order now. You want to go back to the festival site, you want to get information a different way, you can click on schedule. And this is a linear schedule that divides shows by a red line that has the date, the time, and when the in-person screening will be. You want to look at films a different way and you want to check them out individually. You can see Balena right here, which gives you information about the film with an image of the sculpture that Alessia created for the movie. We can go all the way to Gutter and see more information about her film. We see a different picture from his movie. And I forgot to mention Theodore's from Montreal, but he did say Quebec, but just wanted to make sure folks knew where he was from. And you can go to the site and get all this information too. The welcome page is where you can get driving information. You need to register your car if you're going to be parking, and it's pretty simple to do that. And that way you can park for free in the university lots that are adjacent to the space. And I think that does this thing. Oh, you can buy an all access pass. It's $100. It'll save you $70 if you want to watch everything. And the individual tickets are $15. That allows you to see the film online and in person. And yes, we have some crazy people that do both. They watch the films in the afternoon, then they come to the in-person screening to chat with the filmmakers. So I'm going to stop sharing right now, come back to you guys. Theodore is going to be at the screening. He's coming down from Montreal, so we'll be glad to see him there. Alessia is far away. In the past, we used to have travel money, but that was the first thing that the extreme right cut in our country. Arts funding was one of the first things they went after in the 90s, and that was the first thing to go for us. But we have this wonderful way to reach out to filmmakers now. So Zoom has saved us so that people can see you guys and you can interact. So there's a little bit of collegiality amongst filmmakers, which is very important to me as well. And that's basically it. I want to thank you both for participating in this program. Please stick around after I stop recording, but I want to thank you for doing this, and I look forward to showing your movies at our festival.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. So
thank you.